Alright, you made it to the end of the book, Cisco iOS Images and Licensing. Now, with the revised CCNA, you're going to see a lot of questions on version 15. Obviously, that's their newest software version. You know they're going to ask questions about that on the CCNA, so make sure that you're good. When I'm done with this video, we'll go to the website real quick, and I'll just show you where you can get extra information. But as far as our class goes, we're not going to get too much into that, so that won't be a huge feature on our stuff. Alright, so we're going to talk about managing the iOS files, iOS licensing, and pretty much that's it. So objectives, if you want to read these, pause the video now. So we're going to talk about the two main software versions for Cisco, and that's version 12 and version 15. Now version 12 has been out for a while. I think we're using 12.4, 23 in class. Version 15 is out there. And they're named differently. Like in version 12, you had IP base, and then that's what you got shipped with. And then if you wanted to buy a new version like IP security or advanced IP services or IP voice pack, you had to buy that from Cisco and download it. But with version 15, you actually the devices ship with a universal iOS that has all the features, but they're all turned off. And then you just buy a licensing key, and when you put that key in, it activates the features. So kind of neat, and it helps you from having to download a bunch of crap and manage all these different file systems because the universal system has them all together. So with iOS, you have software release families. So version 12, 12.3 and 12.4, that's a family. And then 15 and 15.1 is a family. And then each family has trains, and a train is just a software fixed to that version. So version 15 came out, and they were like, oh crap, we got some bugs. So then they made train 1, so 15.1, and that obviously added some patches to fix 15.0. So all of version 12 is a family, and then you have different families because you might have one package that supports the 1900 series router. You might have one package that supports the 2600 series router, that kind of stuff. And then you have different trains that are different improvements on that family. And then you have mainline trains, and then you have T trains. Woohoo! So, like in this case, I have version 12.4.1. So 12.4.1 is the mainline train. And the mainline train's job really is bug fixes. That's what it's kind of its job. Oh, we've detected an issue with 12.4.1, so then we're going to make 12.4.3. Now, if somewhere in that family line they want to add new features or functionality, like, hey, we want to change this command, or we want to add a command, or we want to pull a command out, then they make the T-train version. So 12.4.2T, 12.4.4T, so that kind of stuff. So whenever you see a T, you know new functionality or some new feature was added to that set. If it's just a mainline train, 12.4.3, you know that only has bug fixes. But when I get here to 12.4.5, 12.4.5 includes all the versions before it. So it has 12.4.4T, 12.4.3, so it has all that stuff. So if let's say you got your routers at home or your routers at your work, blah blah, and you're running 12.4.3, and then you see that 12.4.4T is released. Well, you would need to go and find the documentation and see what new features and functionality were added in that release to see if you need those. If it's not something you're going to use, there's no need to go and download and change the iOS on all your routers. And then you can just wait till something else comes out. Alright, so in addition to that, there's all this other information that you get in the packs or with the iOS numbering scheme. So in this case, 12.4 is the mainline train number. And then the maintenance number would be 21. And then the rebuild identifier, and I have no idea what that is, I'm sure it's in your book somewhere, is A. I've never needed to use that anywhere in the real world. And then for your T versions, you'll see like 12.4, with 20 space T space 1. So I guess I'm assuming that there's 21A, 21B, and that way if they have a very small update, they would just update 21A to 21B, And in this case, if I've got 420T1, and then I add another feature, I would maybe do 420T2. That's what I'm guessing the rebuild identifier is. But I could be totally wrong on that, and I guarantee you I will not test you on that since I don't know that information. So just make sure that you're good. You know that 12.4 and the difference between 12.4 and 12.5 is typically bug fixes. And the difference between 12.4T and 12.4, T typically adds new features. So make sure you're good with that part. All right, under the old version 12.4 and below, they had names. Like there was IP base, and that's typically what shipped on your device unless you paid extra. Then there was IP voice that added support for telephony services. You wanted to make or run a phone system through your router. Enterprise base allowed different routing protocol, or I'm sorry, different networking protocols. AppleTalk, IPX, SPX, that kind of thing. And then SP services added SSH, ATM, MPLS support, advanced security, IPsec, triple DES, VPN stuff, that kind of thing. And then they had combo packs. So advanced IP services, you got advanced security and SP services together. And then enterprise services, you got SP services and enterprise base together. And then if you bought advanced enterprise services, you got all three: advanced security, SP services, and enterprise base. So, and that name was always in the name of the software. So if I did show version, it would say like, C2800 MZ, and then it would say IP base or IP voice. So it was very easy to find out, what you had on there. This is a good slide to have in your Cisco notebook if any of you guys are actually keeping a 3-ring binder. Because again, you graduate a couple years down the road, somebody's going to ask you, hey, we're running the voice pack, IP voice, and I got the enterprise base. Should we load that? What features would we get extra with that? So instead of looking up, you just go, no, enterprise base just gives me multi-protocol services like AppleTalk, IPX, SPX, that kind of stuff. Alright, version 15 changes it up a little bit. They have what they call an EM release, and then they have T releases. Their EM release is for long term. Hey, I want to put this on a router and stick it at a remote office and not deal with it. Because let's say this router is only running EIGRP, and EIGRP is not really going to change a whole lot, or there's not going to, any new command I'm not going to need because I just need basic EIG support services. So I want to just get this release, pop it on there, and leave it out there for 10 years or something like that. And then there's the standard maintenance release, or the T release. That's for more short-term stuff. I want to get the latest updates. I want to keep making changes to this router. So that's where your T version comes in. So here's the transition from version 12 to version 15. Remember, there is no iOS version 13 and 14. They went from 12.4 right up to 15.0. So IP base, they still tell you to use IP base. IP voice, they tell you to use unified communications. Enterprise base, go to data. Enterprise services, go to data plus unified communications. That kind of thing. So again, that's also another one to have, especially now. Obviously 15 has been out for a little while, but not everybody is updated to it. If you've got your routers and they're running well and they're doing their job, and you're not changing anything, and you're not looking for any extra features, and I mean, not a whole lot really comes out to change basic functionality. Most of the releases that come out change the way you can modify the cost of a route, or add that kind of stuff. So the basic, the way EIGRP works, the way OSPF works, that kind of stuff, doesn't typically change a whole lot. You may get new encryption services or things like that, but for the majority of people, it's not odd to go to a business and find somebody still running version 11 of their iOS because it does what they need it to do. There haven't been any improvements that great other than security related, where somebody can dial into your router and access a vulnerability. But if you're in a manufacturing company, and that's not really, hacking is not really an issue because nobody wants to hack you because you make hubcaps, that might not be an issue. But on the other hand, don't forget, just because you only make hubcaps, you obviously have payroll, financial information, and other stuff, so you want to keep that stuff protected. So I digress. All right, moving on. All right, to see what version you have, they have show flash 0, and that'll show you the flash card. And actually, you can just do I don't know if that's a version 15 thing, because normally in class we just do show flash and it shows just all the files in flash. So again, now it's C1900. Remember that the C, I've always said that C stands for Cisco, and then this first number is the model number of the router that works for. So if it says 1900, it's for the 1900 series routers. So if you have a 1901, a 1921, that kind of stuff, it would fit any router that's the 1900 series. And then you get the name. Remember, Universal K9. And then M is like the memory location. I forget what Z was. I think it's the encryption standard. And I have no idea what SPA is. We'll get into that in a minute. So this would be version 15.4 dash 4 dot M3 bin. Remember, bin is just for the binary file. So that's the name. Remember, in iOS 15, everything ships as a universal, which has everything in it, but everything's locked down. So then you have to buy licensing key to unlock things. So here's where they kind of go into everything. So remember the hardware set, obviously if you got a 2800 router, the C1900 is not going to work very well. The feature set, remember universal is the lockdown one. And then M is the memory location, C is the compression format, and they don't tell us what SPA stands for. And then your major release 15, the minor release 0.2, and then the feature release is 4, and then this is an extended maintenance set. Remember that's the long-term one. And then you have your rebuild and then the binary file. Now, I know when I went through the CCNA, I did not have to go through and name what all these numbers and stuff means. I just had to be able to look at a show version file and tell you, hey, this is the version of the stuff that's running, or what is it, IP base or is it IP voice, that kind of stuff. So I don't think at the CCNA level they dig into all this information. Just make sure that you can to show version or show flash, and you can find your iOS file, and make sure that you can say what version of the iOS file number is, and then what packet is. Is it universal? Is it data? Is that kind of stuff. As long as you're good with that, you're good. I've never been asked what M or Z stands for. And even though I know that Z stands for the compression format, I have no idea what that means. And at no point in my IT career would that information have ever benefited me in any way that I can imagine. All right, so you should have a TFTP server somewhere. Now, depending on where you're at, different organizations do this differently. Some organizations have like a TFTP server running in their IT department, and they move stuff there. Other IT guys just run their own TFTP server. Like I prefer SolarWinds, and I have that running on my laptop, and that way I can move everything to my laptop. Some organizations have their own specific TFTP server, and they actually remove the iOSs from the devices, and the iOSs are actually on the TFTP server. And when the router boots up, they point the router to the TFTP server to load their iOS. And that way, if they want to change the iOS for their 12 routers, they can just change the iOS on the server. So it's nice and convenient. Plus, if somebody gets access to your router for some reason, physical access, they can't turn it on because it has no iOS. So that's kind of neat. So anytime you get a brand new router, you should always make a backup copy of the iOS that's running it, because you never know when somebody's going to do something stupid. Delete flash. You're like, oh, that kind of bone anchor your stuff. So you should always have like the model number written down, the serial number, what you're going to name that router, where it's going to be placed, and then a copy of the iOS version, and then a list of, oh, by the way, this is the version that it had on it, and all that kind of stuff. Because I guarantee you, when you have an issue, if you've ever have to call Cisco, they're going to ask you all kinds of information. Hey, what's the iOS version that you're running? Duh, I don't know. That's always bad. That's the first thing that Cisco, like the first identifier to Cisco, that they know I'm dealing with somebody that has no knowledge and is going to be terrible. And at this point, I'm going to quit asking them questions because it's not going to do any good. Don't be that guy. So have all that information, and again, you should have a 3-ring binder for each piece of equipment, not a very big one, maybe just a 1/2-inch one, where you have all this information. Hey, here's all the basic information for my router, and then here's a change log. Anytime somebody messes with this device, they have to record it, and that way I know. And that way, if Joe Bob comes in and makes a change and then leaves, and then you come in to replace him, and then there's issues with that device, you can go right back to his change log and see what he changed. So change management is a big thing, and make sure you're good with that. All right, as far as backing up and stuff, I have another video that I'll put in your folder that shows you how to TFTP to Cisco devices, and you guys have all done this in class several times by now. You know where you run the SolarWinds TFTP server, you set up basic connectivity to your router or whatever Cisco device you're using, and then you can do copy flash TFTP. So it's always copy from to. So copy from flash to TFTP. So copy run or copy flash TFTP. Then it's going to ask you a couple questions. What file do you want to move from the flash? Where do you want to move it to? And what do you want to call it when it gets there? If you're ever playing with iOS files, you should never rename those. Don't ever get in that habit of renaming iOS files. Leave them the name they are. That way you always know what version they are and what package they are. All right, so in our slides, they talk about backing it up, and you got to perform 3 steps. You got to ensure there's connectivity. Obviously, if let's say you're running the TFTP server on your laptop, and you're running the little SolarWinds client. I like that one because it's very small, easily fits on the smallest of flash drives, that kind of thing. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and it does its job. So I put that on my laptop, and I plug my laptop into the router. So if I'm plugging my laptop's NIC card into the router's fast Ethernet port, then I'm going to need a crossover cable. So I always keep one of those in my bag. If I'm going from my laptop to a switch to the router port, then I can just use straight through cables. So once remember, always the very first thing you always do in any kind of lab or whatever you're doing is set up basic connectivity. Put the cables in, ping everything to make sure I'm good. If I set the cables up, I IP everything, and then set up my dynamic routing protocol, and then do my security stuff, my ACLs, and then I test connectivity, I have no idea where I made a mistake. Is it a cable? Is it an IP address? Is it the dynamic routing protocol? Is my ACL screwed up? That kind of stuff. So we do things in baby steps. Cable and IP address. Okay, can I ping? Basic connectivity. Dynamic routing protocol. Check the routing tables. Is everything working good? I can still ping. I'm good. ACL. Oh, now I can't ping. I know exactly it's my ACL. So that stuff does not actually take extra time. It actually saves you time. So do it that way. All right, you get the idea. All right, so they always use show flash 0. I typically just do show flash. And then it's always copy from to. Now the from and the to, we only use four sources. The 3 memory locations of the router and then the external source. Now the external source is easy because it's just TFTP. And then the 3 memory locations of the router are run, start, and flash. So I could copy run start, copy start run, copy run flash, copy flash start, copy TFTP flash, copy flash TFTP, that kind of thing. So it's always copy from to. And there's only 4 commands that could be the from and the to. It's either flash, or start, run, or TFTP. And remember, TFTP is the only one that sends it outside the router. Alright, so now to upgrade router software, we select the Cisco iOS image file that meets our download requirements. And then we go to the Cisco file, blah, blah, and do this. Then we test connectivity, and then we move it over there, and then we just do copy TFTP, copy TFTP flash. So in this case now, they make it look like, oh, I can just go to cisco.com and download the file that I want. That is not the case. You can't just go to cisco.com and download any version of the iOS you want. You've got to have what they call it, a CCO login. And then once you have the CCO login, which is free, anybody can do that, you have to have a license for that version. So you have to buy something, or there's got to be some record of your licensing issue for you to have access to that. Otherwise, you won't get access to it. So just because it says you can go to cisco.com and download that, it only means if you're authorized to download that. Willy-nilly can't just go there and download it. All right. Now, you can also specify where the router boots from. By default, we boot from the flash, and we boot the first iOS that we see there. So in this case, we would set up like boot flash or boot system space. I want to go to the flash drive space, and then the entire name of the file. So C1900-universal K9-mz blah 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 .bin. And again, you don't have to do that by default because that command's already in there. But if for some reason you have multiple versions of an iOS on your flash card, like sometimes you'll find in the labs, you can use this command to specify which version of the iOS you want to run. Now, you can also boot from TFTP. So I got a TFTP server running, it's got 14 images on there, and I go to my router and I do boot system, TFTP, and then the name of the file. and then I'm all there. Or if I want to have ROM-mon as the backup, boot system ROM. And then if I can't find it from the TFTP server, I find it down here. So normal corporations, small and medium size, just boot from the router flash card. But when you get bigger businesses, you need to centrally manage this stuff. There's no way, a regular IT guy can be responsible for, Chicago and London and New York and all these different offices and expect him to go out there and service this stuff. So a lot of stuff is centralized, so we can manage it from central locations throughout our organization. So that's when we typically see the routers booting from TFTP servers. All right, version 15 it incorporates a cross-platform feature set to simplify image selection. So basically what they're saying is each device ships with the same universal image. And that universal image has all the features on it, but they're turned off. And you have to activate certain features with activation license keys. So if you do show license, that'll show you on the 15 series or on version 15 and above, what version you're running, or I'm sorry, what license version you're running. And then, all right, that one's not right because that's IP base and that kind of stuff. All right, here's a better slide for that. So this is the universal image you get. It has IP base, data, unified communication, security all together. And then by default, when you buy a device, you get probably the IP base version. And that's unlocked. But the other three are locked. So then I got to call Cisco and I got to purchase a product activation key, which is a pack. Sign their end user license agreement that I won't export this to third world countries, and then they send me a data license key after I paid for it. And then I punch that key in, and then that opens up the data feature set. That kind of stuff. So it's nice because you don't have to download all these different versions. You have the one universal version, so I don't have to keep track of all that stuff. You just have to keep track of your license keys. All right, back to this slide. The IP base thing threw me off because they all ship with Universal. But Universal just has IP base activated, which gives you basic functionality. OSPF, EIGRP, BGP if you're doing that kind of stuff. RIP, don't touch that. So that kind of thing. And then if you want security features, you got to unlock the security set. If you want voice features, you got to unlock the unified communication set. And then if you want MPLS or that kind of stuff, you have to unlock the data set. So again, new routers are shipped pre-installed with the universal feature set that just has or whatever version you buy. I can call CDW and say, hey, I want my router and I want it shipped with the unified communications pack. And they will put that key on the router for you and then ship it to you. So the 3 steps are you have to purchase a feature or package, and then you have to call Cisco and obtain the license key. Then you have to install the license key, which it works almost the same way. I mean, you used to have to purchase the version, and then you had to go to Cisco's website and verify that you had purchased the version, and then download the newest, iOS version, whatever you had, and then you had to install that on the router. This way, there's just a lot less downloading because you're only getting a license key. All right, we already talked about this. Again, everything ships as universal. Probably just the base features are activated by default unless you specified something different with your supplier or your vendor. And then you buy a license key. All right, so again, step 2 is obtaining your license. You go to Cisco License Manager, is a free software application where you can manage your license on your PC. Then you go to Cisco License Registration Portal and you buy these things. Woohoo! And then both options require a key. Remember the pack is the package activation key number and a unique device ID. So you have to go to your device. Basically, when they create these keys for you, these keys are coded by your device ID, which is typically the serial number of the device. And that way, when you get this key, you can't use it on all of your routers. You can only use it on the router that was specified for. So Cisco was trying to find these ways because what was happening was, in version 12 and below, I would buy the voice pack, and I would buy one voice pack for my 2800 router. And then when I download that software, I would then install it on my 5 2800 series routers. So this is Cisco's way to kind of stop that software piracy thing. All right, so then after I obtain the license, I need to install the license. So from privilege mode, I use the install license space and then the stored location URL, or the URL where I have that license stored. Then I need to reload the router with the reload command. Ta-da! And I'm all done. They do make you a note that unified communications is not supported on 1941 routers, meaning you can't set up a 1941 as a phone system. All right, so the show version command looks a little different in version 15. So show version, hey, here's my, I'm running the security pack. So it's a lot easier to read now in version 15 than it was in version 12, where everything was kind of weird. All right, show license will show me what licenses I have set. So in this case, you know, IP base is set, the security pack is open, but the data set is not. So as you're dealing with newer routers and newer customers that have the 15 version, this show license command is going to be more important to you, because you never know what the customer buys. You know, you'd be surprised, some of the people that are running IT departments are not IT people, they're administrators. And when the CDW guy goes, oh, well, do you want the security pack with that new router? They're like, oh, yeah, I want my router to be secure, so I want the security pack. They have no idea what that supports or what that is. They just know security sounds good. Or advanced IP services. Oh, well, that sounds good to me. I got an MBA. Woo! That kind of stuff. So you're going to need to start checking what license versions your clients have to see what features they support. All right, Cisco also has a, I want to say temporary licenses. I'm sorry, they call them evaluation right-to-use licenses that are good for 60 days to check things out. So again, you still have to install them like a normal license. So I have to accept the end-user license agreement, and then I have to upgrade my iOS to whatever that is, technology packet data 9. And then I can check my stuff, reload, and then I'm good, or show license to verify it. And that's kind of good. Again, you can try that out to see if it works or if it solves the issue that you're having, if it gives you any features, did it increase speed, whatever you're trying to solve by updating. Remember, we don't update iOS versions for the crap of it. You know, it's just like your BIOS on your PC. There's no reason to do that unless there's a problem you're trying to solve. The main problem is typically security holes in the iOS. You know, I don't want somebody getting into my stuff. But if the bug fix is, oh, well, we're fixing this for MPLS, and you just have a T1 on a small 1900 router, there's no need to download that newest update because you're not running MPLS on that, and that router's probably never going to see MPLS, if that makes sense. So we don't just upgrade them for the crap of it. All right. We should still always back up our files, and not only do you need to back up your files, you need to now back up your license keys. So, license save. All right. For some reason, the word license just looks like it's spelled wrong, and I can't tell, 'cause it's one of those words like calendar I always mess up. But anyway, so license save flash, and then colon all licenses.lic. And then where you're going to save those to. So then show flash, hey, there's my all license lick, and then I can move that file over. So basically what I'm doing is here, I'm saving the license files as all license lick, and then I can copy that license lick file to my PC or a flash drive and store somewhere on a CD, so that in case something happens. The last thing you ever want to do is call Cisco and say, hey, I lost my license key from 2 years ago for my advanced data pack. And they're like, oh crap. And it can be a pain in the butt and a lot of big waste of time. It's a lot easier to have the stuff in your files. So be that organized person that keeps track of everything. All right, uninstalling a license. For some reason you don't want to install a license, or you have, let's say you had an evaluation version, and after a week you didn't like it. License boot, module, then C1900, technology package, security K9, disable, exit, and then reload. Most of the time when you download or you go to the page where it has the evaluation versions, they show you the commands to upgrade that to that version and to uninstall that version when you're done. So in summary, blah 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 blah. Alright, so in class we're going to move some files over. We don't have version 15 running currently on the routers because Drew put everything on the voice pack version 12.14 or 12.4. But we will be moving the iOS file to your PC so that you have it. We will be moving configuration files back and forth between servers, that kind of thing. So, if you have any questions, make sure you bring them up in class, and I'll see you in class.